Soccerex Connected, a very good afternoon or good morning if you're in North and South America, bright and early. We know that there's some snow in that particular part of the world, particularly on the East Coast. Good to hear from Jess Kafsouf, our previous moderator, who was able to survive that and give the opening panel. And we'll be moving on in just a moment to our second panel, 1 o'clock GMT, Saving Those Trees, the move to digital ticketing. Today, though, is sponsored by Musco Lighting. And as a result, we've got a very special competition question themed around light. Specifically, tell us your shining star in the world of football, male or female, but the one catch is they must be 21 or under. We're going to be checking passports to make sure that there's no ineligible votes, or who knows, maybe we'll feel generous, and even if you do say a Messi or a Ronaldo who are miles over the ages allowed, we'll still put you in the draw to win one of those signed shirts. So we've got the likes of Louis Saha, Laurie Lindsay, Deco, Carlos Alberto, all available to give away. You can see the full array of shirts via @Soccerex. So tell me, who is your shining star in football, and make sure that you tweet us at Soccerex and use the hashtag SoccerexConnected. Thanks to Utkarsh Bhushan, who says his shining star is Erling Haaland, and that is definitely a good selection. He's even given me a little gif of Haaland, who looks like he's floating above a football pitch. And Ross Auer has been in contact as well and said Phil Foden. Remember, you can send me names and stars, 21 or under, from the male or the female game. Get in contact, and please do use that hashtag SoccerexConnected. Also via the app, if you want to see the full schedule for the day, it's available. And please do engage with the exhibitors too. They're a big part of Soccerex Connected. So let's move on to our 1GMT panel now. It's called Saving Those Trees, the move to digital ticketing. And as the inexorable shift of life to smartphones continues, we'll be asking why football is lagging behind a little bit when it comes to ticketing. Is having your season ticket in hand really that important anymore? And will digital season tickets become a necessity anyway because of the legacy of the COVID-19 pandemic? To discuss, we're delighted to be joined by Rebecca Edward-Symmons, the head of commercial at Swansea City, Jeanene Valentine, the director of ticket operations at Inter Miami, Tom Rowell, the head of marketing and ticket operations at Everton, Dominic Putz, the head of service and ticketing at FC Cologne, and our moderator is the managing director of SecuTix. It is a very good afternoon to David Hornby.
Thanks very much, Ben, and welcome to everyone who's attending today. So it's a warm and breezy welcome from both Miami on the other side of the pond, a colder welcome from the world of Liverpool and Scotland, where I'm based, and Rebecca's in the wonderful city of Swansea. But I'll be coming first to Dominic. So Dominic works for a great club, a club with some great history at FC Cologne. And we're talking today specifically around kind of the move towards digital. And I've just seen some work recently done. The smartphone has created, some would say, the single greatest innovation in terms of changing human behavior. How we're embracing that smartphone, how we're embracing this technology can really open up new opportunities for sport and entertainment. But there are still challenges, and we haven't seen digital ticketing embraced everywhere in the world, and especially in Europe, we've seen some of these things happen a bit slowly. Dominic, coming to you, you were one of the first clubs in Europe and in Germany to use smartphones and do digital tickets back in 2015. Just tell us a bit more about your journey and kind of what are still some of the challenges you're facing at FC Cologne.
Yeah, thank you, David. Thank you for having us today. We are really happy to discuss with you the digital ticketing because, as David said, we were one of the first German Bundesliga clubs introducing mobile ticketing about 6 years ago. Let me tell you some facts about our club. The Erste FC Köln plays in the first Bundesliga in Germany, and our home games take place in the Rhein-Energiestadion, which has the capacity of 50,000 people. So pretty much for a German stadium. Half the stadium in Cologne is taken with season tickets and hospitality seats, and the other half is day tickets. And it's hard to say, but just the day tickets are potentially digital. So the season tickets and the hospitality seats are not digital today. And yeah, as you mentioned, David, there are some blockers because of what we do not go completely digital today. And I want to mention some of these points. If you have any questions, please just let me know. Yeah, the German society and the German culture tends to be some kind of traditional and careful with new or digital things. One example is cashless payments. Just 2 years ago, we spent more money in retail in cash than by check or credit card. When I was in Miami 6 years ago, I paid every beer, every food in every store with my credit card. And in Germany, it's pretty hard to pay with check or credit cards. Nevertheless, there's a sharp increase, of course, and so did digital ticketing as well. When we introduced mobile tickets in 2015, we had 4% of all tickets, of all day tickets, mobile. So digital on the smartphone or via printed home. And today we are up to 40%. So it's 10 times as much as 2015, but still a long way to go. In addition to that, we have a really specific fan culture in Germany. We have many stadiums with great standing areas. So in the first league, there were stadiums in average about 25 standing tickets, 25% standing tickets, and in the second Bundesliga, there are in average 40% standing areas. So nearly every second ticket is a standing ticket. And resulting from this, there are several security issues. So you can print your printed home tickets 50 times and buy a cheap seat and go to the stadium, and someone gives you the printed ticket and you go to the standing areas. And so it's very crowded there. And that's kind of dangerous because of the better atmosphere. The standing areas are highly demanded, of course. But we just have in Cologne 8,000 standing tickets, and they are sold out every time at first. And so we have no turnstile at each sector, so you cannot prove how many people are in the sector. And yeah, that's a really big issue why we don't have mobile tickets for this part of the stadium, for example.
So Dominic,
yeah.
So Dominic, it sounds like you have three kind of buckets there. One's a cultural challenge. One's specific to football, with this relationship between standing and sitting, because that seems to be quite unique in the world of football in Germany. Probably not the same in every kind of environment. And the other one's technology. There's definitely a technology play there in terms of access control and the embracing of technology. So I'm going to go to perhaps the guys in the UK first, to start with Rebecca, because you're in a great city in Swansea, Rebecca. You've been in the world now of digital tickets, again, from a mobile perspective, for the last couple of years. And you were one of the first in the UK to embrace that kind of fully. How have you found that kind of move? And have you found cultural technology or the kind of those kind of buckets? So have you had the same challenges?
No, absolutely. Yeah, we launched in-app ticketing. We were the first club in the UK to do that in January 2018. We were still fortunate to be in the Premier League at the time. Unfortunately, we got relegated that summer. But the reason why we did it was that obviously we felt that there was a huge opportunity in the UK to be the first. We were a smaller club in the Premier League at the time, felt that we could take a risk. And the key demographics for us is the average age of our season ticket holder is 47. Whilst I don't personally class that as old, then of course we do need to look at future-proofing our fan base. and looking at targeting the younger generations. So we felt that digital was the way of us being able to step forward. That said, when we launched in-app ticketing, because of the key demographic of our audience, then we did have a few learnings from our older supporters, such as the lovely word Android, and how many devices fall under the Android marketplace, right? So it's great when you've got an iOS handset and you've got an Apple handset where it's a one size fits all, but when you've got Android and people on all these different obscure mobile phones from all over the world, then being able to create the barcode to be able to sit in the main framework of the screen was a huge part. Then we had the challenge of season ticket versus match day ticket, and how do we make this barcode that it can only be scanned once per game and then only 23 games per season. Then you have the older generation who at first did get very frustrated with the fact that they wanted to get this to work. So we quickly learned that we needed to do how-to guides and go back to traditional video format to actually teach people on how to use this technology. But also connectivity. I think everybody forgets that when we've got these huge stadia with no connectivity or hardly any, and everybody wants to have the fully connected stadia, and only a few stadia have managed to do that in the world, then connectivity, it's great having their ticket on their app, but have they downloaded their ticket before they leave their house? Because if they haven't and they try and rely on the connectivity at the stadia, then that creates a whole heap of problems. But no, I think that there was a lot of learnings for us, and education is key. But as I say, we were in a very fortunate position at the time where we had the time to be able to work through this. And now we've got the match day ticket in the app, we've got the season ticket in the app. And I think the awful scenario of the COVID pandemic has made everybody more digital. My dad in his 70s would never, he only dealt in cash. Whereas now he's tapping and going places because he feels safer doing that. So I think it's made everybody accelerate to trusting technology. Whereas before, I think it would have taken an awful lot longer. I think a lot of clubs will be going cashless because they can use the environment of what we're in. That's the next phase for us. We will be going cashless, and I want a fully digital transactional journey for our end users because it makes sense for them and for us.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. That's really interesting. I think there's a couple of points there to pick up on. I mean, cashless. There are rumours now that contactless is going to move to, I think it's £100 in the UK quite soon. That's something that's going to be, I think, going to the FCA quite soon right now. It's been very successful, I think, £30. But I think it needs to get to that kind of level for you then to be able to really benefit from a true experience in stadia where realistically, you're going to be spending in some areas of that stadia potentially more than 15, 20, £30, especially if you're looking at retail shops and merchandise especially. So I think that would be really useful to do. So there's one point there that was quite interesting, I think, that not everyone really thinks about. And it's something that we've had to deal with at SecuTix in our kind of solutions. We have a product called Tix and Go, which is our secure mobile product, and we work with a number of partners on that, and one being a very big European partner for the Euros. And it's something that we have to do, just to kind of pick up on your point there. We do rigorous testing every 2 or 3 weeks with about 400 different types of phones through a third party, just to make sure that we can work with every operating system and every type of phone. It's fine, as you say, with iOS and Apple, but the Android world is a bit more scary in the sense of just the variety. And the second point, which is quite interesting, you mentioned, I think, is the whole piece around connectivity. So one of the things that we did in terms of our product development was not link the barcode to be able to download via wireless or connectivity. It's activated via Bluetooth or Time or Beacon, which means that you're not relying on the connectivity of the phone in the area that you're in or the stadium that you're attending. And I think that's key. And also linking that barcode to some shape or way, which isn't linked to the connectivity in terms of how it changes or it moves. If you've got that kind of solution, that's linked to the actual phone itself, and again, not to the internet, because those two things can go, they're your biggest risk factors, aren't they, in terms of that breakage. But I'm going to go to Tom now. And Tom, you're based at Everton, and you've been working there now for a few years. The digital piece has been slower in the northwest of England and Liverpool. How have you seen that kind of move in the last 12 months before COVID? And then obviously not much has happened during 2020, but kind of how did you see it flow, and where do you think it's going to get to next for you guys?
Yeah, hi David. I think similar to Rebecca in a lot of ways, it's a cultural shift for us. I think anyone that knows the Northwest generally it's quite a cash dependent economy up here still. It's still very much a cultural thing. Similar to, I guess, Dominic in Germany, the people up here are very cash driven. And it's still the norm. I think we have made big steps forward. Again, similar to Rebecca, I think the COVID situation has made people change their ways of doing stuff quicker than we'd have expected. So it's definitely been a benefit. Again, even as a club now, we're still pushing really hard to move away from even paper ticketing and postage, from both an environmental but also a cost and fulfillment resource perspective. We're trying to move people away from. But again, it has been difficult because some people do like having a paper ticket. It's just that the culture still is that they like it in the post. They like almost a souvenir element of keeping the ticket stub. It's easy for them to share with friends and family, etc. So I think we've still got a way to go in that area. And I think sharing in particular is a big thing, particularly in this region. We have a lot of fans that we know will share a season ticket, either through their availability to get to games, the barriers to entry, maybe from a cost perspective. It's not uncommon for families or friends to share season tickets. So again, obviously we try and move that away, but it is still an occurrence for us. So the ability to share tickets electronically is something that we need to consider as well. Whether or not we encourage it, allow it, put restrictions on it, that sort of stuff is something we need to be mindful of. So I think obviously with the pandemic and then the back to games that we had over Christmas, we were fortunate enough to have a few games over Christmas with fans in the stadium. So again, from a technology perspective, there was a huge amount for us to do in a very short space of time around obviously getting fans back in, running ballots, looking at how we're going to get people in, who can apply. Obviously, we had pre-made game questionnaires had to submit as well, and that sort of stuff. So it was a fairly challenging time for us. But again, it definitely moved people more towards technology because it was the only way we were going to get people in that time frame was through e-ticketing. I think in the end, around of the 2,000 fans that we were allowed in for each of those 3 games, I think only maybe 60 were paper tickets, and that was due to absolute necessity for different reasons. But the majority really were on digital, which is a big difference from our pre-COVID average ratio of paper versus digital. So like I say, I'm hopeful going forward that we can do it. I'm also mindful that sometimes it's what's best for the club isn't always best for the fan. And I think sometimes, clubs will have a strategy that, saves them money, saves them resource and that sort of stuff. But actually you've got to be a little bit careful that it might not necessarily be exactly what the fans want all the time. And it's a two-way street of doing what's best for the club and making sure ultimately you're not doing something that is going to either alienate or distance fans from the club, because obviously that's a bigger long-term risk than the short-term saving potentially. So it's a hand-in-hand process. I think we'll get there up here, obviously with the new stadium in a few years. I think we're working towards that as our sort of timeline, but I think it will take a while for us to move the culture in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a club like Everton, where the fan is such an important part of your being in Liverpool, and I think it's definitely something that you need to think long and hard about. Trying to enforce these things will be challenging, and I think it's about that education piece. It's about communication, and I know you guys think about those things very carefully. So, I think it's a journey. I think this will move things faster, but ultimately you'll still need to hold their hands over the next 12 to 18 months to kind of get to that stage. I think you're right. I mean, what's quite fascinating, just going to Jeanene now, finally, kind of opening up. Jeanene, you come at it now completely from a different end of the scale, don't you? You've had the benefit of starting, I think, how many projects now in new stadiums you've been involved with?
This is number 8, so I've been around a little while.
Yeah, so I mean, you're 100% digital in effect. So maybe share with us the journey that you've gone on with Inter Miami and kind of how you see it from that side of the bridge, because you're looking back at a non-digital environment, but I'm sure there are still some challenges that you've had to face being 100% digital.
Yeah, I mean, I always knew that was the way to go, right? It was, you had to go full digital. Why, start one way and then have to rip the Band-Aid off? You always just wanted to start fresh. It was a brand new stadium. It was a brand new team. Why not start with brand new technology? I think that kind of helped customers a little bit more. There was never an option to have a printed ticket, so they knew that they always had to be digital. And luckily, we're not the only pro sports team in the market, so we did kind of have another team kind of break through that ice with the fan base here a little bit, so it did make things a little bit easier. But in today's world, you know, to everyone else's point, we are still in COVID, and post-COVID, everyone's going to want to feel safe. That's what's going to have the fans come back to the stadiums, is they need to feel safe in attending. So you have to take away as many touch points as you can. And then you just kind of educate the customer that this is beneficial for them. They don't have to chase down their friend and give them a ticket. They can simply open the app and transfer them the ticket. And the best part of that for every club, I mean, it's the key word nowadays is data, data, data. Every time you forward that ticket to another person, that's another hot lead for your sales team. And then going cashless and having everything integrated within the stadium, you're getting all of that data too. What are they buying at concessions? What are they buying merchandise? How many friends did they have? You're getting all of that data, and all that does is benefit your team. So there is this path that you're going to want to create that you can go down little by little and 100% know your customer. You know, everybody who's coming in, you know their age, you know their spend, you know where they work, like everything is there, and all it can do is help you give the customer a better game day experience, but also help the club grow and make, you know, wise business choices. So for me, that's the thing. It's a win-win situation. It's easy for the customer, and it does nothing but benefit the club as we continue to grow. So there should be no other option. And I get it. I mean, I understand, you know, wanting to have that tangible item. It's probably attached to one of your very first childhood memories. I mean, everywhere in the world except for America, soccer is life, right? Like it's a rite of passage, and probably everyone's first memory is dad taking them to go see their first football game. And I'm sure dad handed you your own ticket, and you went through that gate and you got your own ticket scanned. And so many people probably still have that ticket. I collected tickets. So I understand that. We just want to make sure that everybody is safe. And now with the benefits that technology can give us, everyone just needs to embrace it and continue to move forward into the future.
Jeanene, I mean, that's fascinating perspective. I mean, you're absolutely right. My father was an Evertonian, actually, and my first football game was Everton. I've never told you that, Tom. But and my first actual live sporting event was Twickenham at the age of, I think it was, I watched New Zealand versus England, and I think it was 1976, so I'd have been 10 at Twickenham, which was an amazing experience to watch the All Blacks play England. And I think, you know, you do look back at those and you do have those moments, but Dominic's still living that. What would be your advice, kind of opening up the floor now to all of you? Maybe start with Jeanene to Dominic. What are the kind of steps that he needs to be thinking about? Because he can change this. There's a few things there that are out of his control, but there's a few things there that are within his control. What should he be thinking about in FC Cologne?
Yeah. There are several groups. Jeanene mentioned the memories, but there are also the hospitality partners. They want to have a value ticket in their hands and give them to the partner and say, here, you go to the stadium and there will be a great day. So there are several groups, but I think, as Rebecca and Tom said, the pandemic situation is an accelerator for mobile and digital services at all, and for digital ticketing as well. For example, we had 2 or 3 games in autumn last year with some spectators. So before Christmas, we had the concept of the German Football League, and there was clearly recommended to just have digital tickets, and all of our spectators, just 300, but all of them had a digital ticket. There was no paper ticket at all. And from these 300 tickets, at least 200 98 persons were in the stadium. So they are really hot on football. They want to see the games, and if there are only digital tickets, then this works. But you have to prove the benefits for the fans, as Jeanene and all of you mentioned as well. There are no shipping costs. There are no handling fees. You get your ticket directly after your purchase. You have your ticket always with you. You cannot lose it on the way to the stadium. You can forward it directly to anybody else. You do not have to wait for any friend who is late or anything like this. And these are all the benefits for the fan, not for the club. For the club, it is leads, of course, better processes in the back office, faster processes. This is for the club, but it's important to make every fan clear the benefit for him. And this is, I think this is the most important point. And you can also point out the mission to be carbon neutral. Yeah, this is one point as well. If we send, for example, in Germany, 5,000 tickets for the away team through Germany, they sort it, sell it, and send the unsold tickets back to us, and we cancel them in the system. That's crazy. That's not state of the art. You can do it digital, and this is our mission, to make this process carbon neutral, fan friendly, and at least better for the clubs.
Well, we should talk more anyway about changing technology, but I think you raise an important point there, and that is we do see in certain segments of the audience this slight resistance around the physical ticket, because it seemed to be a hospitality ticket, a lanyard, a pass, something that makes you feel a bit special, that you want to share with your customers, your colleagues, your friends, or even your guests if you've bought these enhanced facilities and experiences personally, which we see a lot more of now. I mean, how did you deal with that, Jeanene, in Miami? This whole, do you have a solution for that? I'm sure you found a way to make some more money on the back of that potentially.
I mean, you're always going to run into issues. So I always tell everyone to take a step back and think of it from the fan perspective. Like, what are the issues that you would possibly run into? I think the biggest one that people don't necessarily experience, but it's usually their first and biggest objection to digital ticketing, is a dead cell phone, right? Like, everybody has to make sure that your cell phone is fully charged, that you're going to be able to access your tickets when you arrive. So sometimes the club just needs to step out of the box and be a little bit more clever, like a season ticket member gift. Why not give them a portable charger, or have chargers available at the ticket office or inside, guest services? Just start to really find an issue and center yourself around it and think of every solution that you possibly can, just to make them feel more comfortable. One of my favorite parts of working any match is actually being at the gates when they open, for those first customers that open the app, pull up their ticket and get it scanned. They're so scared, they're so timid as they approach, and then to watch them figure it out and scan the ticket, and they get so surprised. They're like, oh, well, that was so much easier than I thought it was. Yeah. Like, that's when you see all of the hard work that you paid off come together. Education. Dominic is going to have to embrace, just attach yourself to those fans, especially the standing fans that are resistant to the technology, and just, be with them, walk them through it over and over on their phone. I mean, now we have to do it 6 feet away, but just spend that time with your customer. Let them know that this is the only thing that matters right now, is teaching them how to use the app, how to find their ticket, how to scan it, how to transfer it to their friends, how to receive a ticket, just kind of handhold them and make them feel more comfortable, and continue to push the benefits that this is. Like, this isn't for us, this is for you. And this is how it can be used to better your experience. You have loaded value on tickets, keep going down that path of removing any kind of cash or touching from the stadium, just to make sure that they feel good and safe, and it's all about coming here and having a good time. So Dominic's going to have quite a few best friends as he starts to move forward into ticketing, and just really embrace those fans, because they will then, the moment you get them to buy into digital ticketing, they're going to be your biggest ambassadors. They're going to show their friends because it makes them feel cool now, right? Let me show you, let me transfer this to you. And they're going to become your biggest ambassadors. And that's what you're going to do. That's a new culture, a digital culture that we're bringing to our fans, and they'll embrace it and they'll help each other. And next thing you know, you're like me and all you are in the digital world.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. We did the ticketing for the Ryder Cup in Paris in 2018, and given some of the challenges that France faced the year before in terms of terrorism, one of the things that the French authorities asked us to do was to have a very specific process around tickets and identity. And one of the things that we had to do was everyone had to upload a picture. So, you know, a process that was, and everyone had to do that. So if you bought 4 tickets, you had to then pass your other 3 tickets to your colleagues who were attending, and they had to individually upload a picture. Now that was a slightly lengthy process, and you can imagine it caused a few customer calls and some customer service challenges. However, the faces, you know, a huge American audience obviously comes to the Ryder Cup. The faces of when those guys turned up at 6 o'clock in the morning and walked through access control, and they could see on the screen or the access control the picture that they'd uploaded from their laptop or their PC at home, you know, 3 to 6 to 12 months previously, and went, oh wow, and this is me, I did that, and actually they're checking that now. They were thanking us for making them feel safe and actually providing that platform. It was a fascinating process actually to see the light in their eyes when they saw that, because they recognize value that has given them. You know, it's quite interesting. So Rebecca, you've been doing this now for a couple of years. So are there some segments that you still have some challenges with in terms of adoption, and how are you dealing with that?
Funny enough, I was just listening to Jeanene now, and I was thinking, do you know, the key to all of this is the engagement part. Yeah. It's the engagement with the supporter. So the 3, I was just listing 3 things that everybody's just picked up there that we've actually integrated in the app to make a difference. So when Jeanene said about that first experience of when you remember that first game you went to and you keep your ticket stubs. So one of the things we've done in our app is every game that you go to, you have a stub on there. So you have a digital stub of every ticket you've been to, and you can share that stub digitally. So that's one thing that we've done, and that was a clear win for the supporters, because they could see they'd been to a game, they could prove they'd been to a game, and it was visible, it was tangible, they could see it and feel it. The other thing was the personalization. So when you said, David, that, you know, people had to upload a photo. So the next phase for us in our app is in the section for the tickets, is that they actually personalize it. So just like they would personalize an Instagram profile, personalize a Facebook profile, then they create their own personal profile. And that then will resonate with every audience member type. And you can tag in there, you know, you can add your parents, you know, you can. So in other words, if you go to an away game and there's 8 of you that buy tickets together, then you can connect your accounts, yeah, so that you can actually physically see the group that you're traveling with. That's the second thing that we're working on. But the third thing, I think, and this is the bit that I think Jeanene alluded to, is loyalty. So obviously we're going through a different time in Swansea, that we're actually bringing the catering in-house. So as part of the stadium experience, you know, we're having new automated turnstiles put in the summer. So we want the digital journey to be that they turn up to the automated turnstile, they use their app, they scan their ticket, they walk in, and then with the catering functionality, that we reward loyalty by them using their Swans app to pay, accrue loyalty cash. So that's where then the journey becomes, it makes more sense. It makes more sense for the supporter. So look, yeah, we've learned some negative things along the way, just like I talked to you about the Android devices, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that was a massive learning curve for us, was we realised just how many handsets, and I think it's something like 440 different handsets, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like, how can you, that's hard to manage. So, you know, our app developers were unable to do that, rather than the ticketing provider like you've done, David.
Rebecca, how have you seen adoption? I think we've got a couple of questions from the audience as we move forward, as we move along in this kind of last third. What's been adoption growth for you over the last 12, 18 months pre-COVID? Let's talk about that.
At first, it was very slow. So when we launched it, it was extremely slow, and it was just the young 18, the people who just bought their first ticket would use it. Just before COVID hit, we were scanning in on average. So we're a 21,000 seater stadium, and we were scanning in 6,000, right? So, it's not huge. It's nowhere near Jeanene. Of course it's not. But when we started, and I mean very low tens to hundreds, it built up, but it built up very, very quickly. So we're about 6,000 out of 12,000 season ticket holders. So we're about half.
And Tom, over to, you've seen obviously not necessarily pure digital ticketing, but use of Passbook and Wallet. You've definitely started to use that in the last couple of years since we've been working together. I mean, how's that adoption kind of generated? And obviously you're tracking it, but do you think the Premier League's tracking that to see an overall view of how digital ticketing is moving across the whole Premier League?
Yeah, there definitely is a sort of consensus across all the clubs to move forward at an equal pace. I think one area in particular, which is quite interesting, is around away ticketing being done digitally. Because again, at the moment, and I'm sure the other guys will vouch, the away ticketing process for clubs is a bit of a nuisance in terms of postage, printing, envelope stuffing and that sort of stuff, and collections at both ends is always a problem. So I think there is a move, and again, one of the strengths of the Premier League, is that they can kind of make decisions like this across all clubs, and the majority of clubs in the Premier League are on a similar footing from a technology perspective. So there is a conversation, and maybe even from next season onwards, that we will have some sort of shared access control and ticketing for away ticketing for fans, which again would be a huge relief for us and much easier for us to make changes and allocate tickets. So yeah, that's definitely something that I think would help, is if every club was on a similar footing in that area. In terms of our adoption, it's been good. I think, like I say, I think we are some challenges culturally. I think, like I say, in the part of the world, I think a lot of it probably is age specific as well. As again, same with the other clubs. I think, for the majority of fans below a certain age, this is second nature. It's not even up for debate. They've grown up in this way. They order everything on their phone, taxis, deliveries, food, etc. Everything is through that system. So I think it is more the sort of the elder generation of fans, which again, probably for us as a club makes up still quite a substantial amount of our fan base, is probably sort of mid-40s plus onwards. We have some sort of fairly senior season ticket holders in quite large numbers still. So I think it's that area that I think we will always probably struggle with, and it might be that we try and encourage them to do it, but it might be that there is some resistance longer term, in that we either have to be realistic about is this something we can implement and enforce, or is it something that we can encourage and accept that it's not going to be 100%? And do we try and just say, right, we can get to 80% and that's enough for us? Or, again, like you said earlier, as a club, Everton, obviously we're very mindful of the supporter experience, but then we have obviously stuff around accessibility, perhaps issues as well. Obviously, not everyone can use a phone, whether that's for disability issues or other sort of non-obvious issues as well. So again, there's a little bit of a mindfulness around. I completely understand where Jeanene's at with it to Miami, and I think that's the benefit of them obviously having a fresh slate and having a brand new fan base and that sort of stuff, is that you can make those decisions from day one. Obviously, as a club that's been around for 120 years, it's quite difficult to make sweeping changes in that way, while still being respectful of the fan base. So yeah, it's an intricate one for us to say. We know we want to get to, but I think we're not in a huge rush to make, like I say, big demands of fans, because it wouldn't really go with the style of the club that we're at in terms of that decision making. So small steps is probably our approach.
Yeah, I think Tom, obviously with you and the team at Everton, you've got the future's looking bright in terms of new stadium. I'm sure there's still some hurdles to jump, but fundamentally your vision is to take fans on a journey into a new stadium in the years to come. It's an impressive position in Liverpool as a city in terms of location. It's an impressive footprint in terms of size. What are your thoughts, listening to Jeanene, about some of the things that you need to be thinking about in your role about that kind of fan journey for the future?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and again, I think for us, it's a big leap forward. Obviously, Goodison Park, as everyone knows, is a great stadium, but it's of its age, and it's a very old stadium, which has some benefits, but it has a lot of negatives from a technology perspective. And I think, like Rebecca said earlier, connectivity is always an issue at Goodison Park, and that sort of stuff. So I think having a clean slate of a brand new stadium will give us a huge amount of scope to make changes. Obviously, connectivity, access control, and those sorts of areas. And again, the fact that it's 3 or 4 years down the road is interesting again, because like everyone knows, technology changes so quickly that it's what decisions we make now, but actually in 18 months time, something might come along that completely blows us out of the water, whether it's, biometrics, fingerprints, faces, not that I particularly want to push to that level, but, in 4 years time, it's going to move quickly. I think, it's invention and necessity and that sort of line, isn't it? So I think we'll be in a different place. So we have to make decisions now and then obviously see it and wait where the market is in the future. In terms of cashless, again, I wouldn't rule it out, but I probably wouldn't rule it in even in 4 years' time. I think that is a big barrier for us. Cashless one is a real hurdle and a real challenge. So yeah, lots to do with the new stadium, but I think as an experience, it's going to be fantastic. It'll be a very emotional move for fans. Obviously, they're so attached to Goodison Park. It has a real sort of connection for fans. So it's a positive, and the journey has to be something that's a positive experience for them, because again, that's there is even a small percentage of fans now that are almost slightly reluctant about the move because they love Goodison Park so much, and it's a big part of their experience. So we have to try and make it a very clear benefit of it's a brand new stadium. There's not thousands of restricted view seats, which we have a problem with at the moment. It's a good experience for everybody, but making the technology a benefit, because I think again sometimes it can almost feel like it's too fussy with technology, and actually it can feel like this seems like more effort than it would have been just for the paper ticket. So again, it's trying to explain to fans that this is actually, it should be quicker. It shouldn't just be for our benefit and for security and that sort of stuff. It should actually make it quicker as well, which can be hard as well. So yeah, lots to do. Yeah.
I think so. Football has a unique proposition. Most of you have a large percentage of season ticket holders. You have a direct relationship with those guys. You have less and less match tickets to sell on a match by match basis. So you have a more intimate relationship with fans. So you have innately more trust between you and the fan as a club. I think it's interesting for other sports that don't have that high level percentage of season ticket holders, because in the next 6 months, I think building trust back with our fans is going to be a key factor. How are you going to do that, Jeanene? I mean, I don't know your percentage. So when in terms of season ticket holders versus match by match, it might be slightly different with a new club. How are you going to build trust back, especially given the health challenges we're all facing? How are you going to build trust?
Well, actually, we returned to 2 matches before the end of our season where we did welcome fans into the new stadium. Of course, it was a low number because of social distancing in the stands, just to make sure that everybody felt okay. But they're excited. We're a brand new team. I mean, not just that, but I have to say it, guys, we're David Beckham's team. And the moment everyone knew, they were just like, oh, wow, here we go. Miami's been waiting 10 years for this. Yeah. They've been waiting a while for this. So the moment that they were able to actually come and step foot into the stadium, like they've been waiting a long time, and it was finally here. It was almost to the point where it was like, oh, we're going digital. We hope that you got, and they were just like, we don't care. We just want to come into the stadium at this point. So we're in a little bit of a different, situation, but they were very, happy to come. They embraced digital ticketing, no problem. We had a season ticket member event prior to, just so that they were used to opening the app, finding their digital ticket, just kind of a dry run for us as well. I wanted to break everything I possibly could to know that that was putting us in a better position for our first match day, which is, Dominic, you're going to want to break everything. So test, break, just, and your fan is there. But loved it, they embraced it. And being at such a low number, it is our season ticket members only right now who are able to attend our matches. Yeah. So that helps a little bit more because we have worked with them a lot. They are comfortable with the app. They are comfortable with digital ticketing, transferring, that kind of thing. But otherwise, I mean, like I said before too, there were other teams here that helped us with digital ticketing, and it's 10 times easier for us. And I don't know if everybody knows, but we've got another stadium on the way in a couple of years. So let's see where technology is then and what kind of new toy I get to bring to the world again.
And Rebecca in Swansea, how is the trust piece going to play out with you guys, do you think? How are you going to give people the confidence to return to that kind of live environment? I know there'll be some fans that are gagging, but I'm sure there's some there who are children of mothers who think, do I really want my kids to go to that kind of environment, not just from a football perspective, but a COVID and health? I mean, how are we gonna do that?
I think it's all about communication, and I think it's about communicating with each fan group, and segmenting your database and knowing the people and being transparent. You know, some people are going to be happy staying at home, continuing to watch the stream. You know, people are going to be used to watching. I think that's our next big challenge in football, because now we are on the TV every night. You can watch 2 games on our TV channels. You know, so it's transforming. I don't think they'll take much persuading to get back into the atmosphere, if I'm honest with you. But I think it's all about communication, David.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So we've got like 5 minutes left now, and I just wanted to give all of you the chance just to, where do you see the next 12 months? You know, where do you see the next kind of focus around this topic of digital? And Dominic, coming to you first, what are your next steps after hearing what the guys have said today for probably 22-23 season, if we're all 21-22 season now?
Yeah, we really want to go digital, and nearly 100%. With all the target groups I mentioned, hospitality, standing areas, etc. But we want to go digital, and there are some kinds of contactless payment and contactless ticketing. So you have NFC or something like that. This is probably a good solution. And yeah, at least you have to help your fans to go to the stadium. They should feel safe, and you can go with them through it, and not you say we do it like this, and they have to come back. So yeah, I think we have to go with our fans, with every target group through this pandemic situation, and then bring the benefits back to them with a great atmosphere, probably with some wins in the league, and then I think yeah, we go further with this topic also in football.
Thank you, Dominic. Tom, what's on your agenda for the next kind of 6 to 12 months then, when you think we can get back to live, which sounds like it's not going to be until the start of the next season?
Yeah, in the first instance, I think that's where we're looking at. I think it's not a secret to say that we probably won't be playing in front of fans again for the remainder of this season. So very much now the focus is on how next will look, whether that's a partial crowd from August. I think that's likely. I don't want to make predictions, but I think it's unlikely we'll be back to full capacity in this calendar year. So I think we're still working at going back to the ballot and phase return process that we started this Christmas from August again. So I think from our side, we're fortunate that we know how that works now. We've done it, we've road tested it, we have the systems ready, we know how to allocate the seats, we know how to run the ballot, we know how the seat mapping works based on the safety advice. So, we're in a good position, we're ready to go. I think the other major change is around season tickets, because again, it's now the sort of hot topic is what do they look like, obviously for next year. And I think, again, the consensus amongst the clubs I've spoken to is that, they won't be selling season tickets in the usual model in the next few months, and that they will wait and probably go to a pro rata pay-as-you-play model essentially for ballot games, which again is a massive change for us, because culturally, the season ticket window is something that fans instinctively know it comes around every year at the same time. They save up their money, they tweet that they bought their season tickets. That renewal process is a big cultural thing for us. So to move to a model potentially where fans apply for a ticket, if they get picked, then they pay, is a real big shift for us. So again, it's a bit like Rebecca said, it's making sure that fans understand why we're doing this, but trying to make it for their benefit as much as ours. And again, I have the same view around TV games as well, in that a lot of fans might think, actually, if it's I just want to apply for certain games and I'll just pick and choose. And again, that culture of picking and choosing games is not something that we're used to, because of a season ticket, that's your commitment to the whole season, isn't it? So obviously we have match to match sales, but we don't allow season ticket holders to pick and choose and then get a refund or not pay for certain games. It's a big change in that culture as well. So yeah, lots to think about.
Do you think this gives us an opportunity, Tom, to look at some new structure in terms of pricing, around subscription maybe, going forward?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because I think in the past, a few clubs have looked at, do we do almost like a 75% of a season ticket? So you pay for, say, 15 games and then you just pick the 15 you want. And we have a lot more flexibility on that. I think it's challenging, given that obviously on the whole, the majority of fans will pick the same 15 games of the 19. So we can end up with the same problem. But I think also as well, it's it's a cash flow conversation ultimately. I think obviously, I know my finance department would very much prefer to have a very rigid and regular season ticket campaign that is easy to know. We know the numbers, we know the prices. It's easy to manage. So moving to a more flexible subscription model has a lot of risks. Obviously, we do direct debit now, so we have like a monthly revenue, but that's upfronted by our credit company. So again, these are big decisions. As much as they start as a fan experience question, they very soon drift into PR, finance, risk. It's a big conversation. Yeah.
How about you, Rebecca? What does 21-22 look like for you? Where's your head at?
We've actually gone on sale with season tickets, which I think is brave. But to be honest with you, we've sold more than half of our base already. But we decided to give back. So we've gone out with unbelievable prices that people can buy a season ticket for £9. So yeah.
And just finally, sorry, a last word from Jeanene. We're just getting close now, but just a last word from Miami.
We're going to use digital ticketing to its fullest extent, welcoming back fans. And I'll let you guys know. I'll give you an update for next year.
Okay. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for your time. And back to the studio.
Great stuff, a fascinating panel there on day 2 of Soccerex, presented by Musco Lighting. As a result of our presenting partner, we have a light theme, and we are asking you, who is your shining star in football? They must be 21 or under. Send your suggestions to @Soccerex on Twitter and use the hashtag SoccerXConnected to stand a chance of winning one of our fantastic array of signed shirts. Stay with us. Day 2, Soccerex Connected. Keep engaging. Make sure you check out the exhibitors via the app as well. And I'll be back in just a moment to introduce our next panel.